On this week's podcast, we're talking to our special guest, Michael McLendon, Executive Director of the Alabama Independent School Association. It's in our second business spotlight of the year, right here in the Dogwood Podcast. Hi, and welcome to the Dogwood Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Harris, and in today's session, we're going to talk about the business spotlight and the AISA. The AISA stands for Alabama Independent School Association, and who better to represent them than their executive director, Michael McLendon. Welcome.
Welcome. Who better?
I've known Michael now for a long time. It's been about 15 years, maybe a little bit more, from your days back at Macon East.
Probably 20.
Has it been 20 years now?
Yeah.
Wow. Because my wife was a teacher there at Macon East, and you were the headmaster for interim headmaster, I should say, probably, or actually
Right.
headmaster, like a legitimate, you were the guy there for a little bit? Okay, it was just interim.
So when I went to Macon East, I was the college counselor, and then I was the upper school director, and then I was the interim head.
Yep, and then when you became interim, I thought you were going to be headmaster. Then next thing you know, that you're working for AISA.
Right,
Because you took over the associate director position at that point, and you were that position for about 5 years, I think, and then maybe a little bit more than that, and then became the director very shortly after that. So
So this is my 14th year with the association, and I guess I became the executive director in 2018. So
that's roughly about 6 years now. So you were in the other role for about 9 years or something like that. So I can't do 8 years.
You can't do math. Yeah, it's about
it's not that. It's just math on the fly. So
about eight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a pretty good experience then,
because
you've had from the very beginning, just from counseling students all the way to leading staffs, and then now leading multiple schools. And and that was one of the things I was going to point out was AISA has been around since 1970, and and I guess this is a great question to start with. What is the AISA?
Well, I think it's best characterized as a representative organization that provides services to its members, to its member schools, to its independent schools. And I think independent school that's confusing. I think most people are probably more familiar with the word private school. Independent is really kind of intended to have a broader meaning, to incorporate more schools that are essentially just non-public. Okay. So faith-based schools, anything that's not that operates off of a non-public governance structure.
Well, I was going to ask two questions about that because you mentioned faith-based schools, which kind of leads into my actual real question is, what does a typical member school look like? I mean, are a lot of them faith-based schools, or is that just there's a lot of them that happen to be faith-based schools, or do you have to be a faith-based school to be in the AISA? Or
No. Okay. So many are. There is no typical independent school, and I think that 30 years ago that may not have been the answer to that question. There are a large majority of our schools are faith-based or have some sort of faith-based foundation, but we have schools that serve special needs students exclusively. We have schools that serve low-income students. We have schools that are faith-based. We have schools that are the opposite of faith-based. So we have some. It's really kind of a broad spectrum, and our position on it really is to allow schools or to serve schools. We don't get involved in their mission. So our purpose is to provide services to schools to carry out their individual missions.
One of the biggest things, and we mentioned this in our kind of pre-talk, you talked about innovation and that being a big thing, being a part of the AISA, because again, it literally has independent in the name for AISA. And so innovation has become a pretty big thing about being a school in the AISA, and that schools just have the ability to be more creative, like you mentioned.
Absolutely. And that's really, we're seeing that evolution in education in general. I think independent schools have the ability to pivot a little bit faster and to be a little bit more creative. Now, do all of them take advantage of that? Flexibility, independence, they don't, but they do have that ability, and we see some of that. I think we saw some of that during COVID. schools really, at least in our state, at some point, public schools completely shut down, and the independent schools and non-public schools really kind of took it and ran with it, and were able to carry out their school year virtually and through creative means and
pivot a lot faster too, even than a public school can, because I mean,
it's smaller. It's not. It's apple and oranges, so you really can't compare the two. Mm-hmm. And that's not a criticism of the public sector. There's a lot of other things they have to consider that we don't, as far as means and the students, and they really kind of have to consider. Do students have internet access, and do students,
right?
They have a lot of other challenges. But yeah, those were some hectic days, but they really were able to shift into go mode, and it was pretty impressive, to be honest with you, to see teachers and administrators really just kind of get after it the way they did. And
well, one thing
make that happen.
You mentioned there too about you were very positive about public schools. You're very quick to make sure we're not putting down public schools, but that kind of leads into the whole school choice thing that's even happening right now, because not everything's always the right choice for every student, and school choice is this big thing that's out there in the legislature currently right now. How is something like this going to affect AISA schools? Well,
I mean, school choice. So this is my 24th year in what we'll call private education. So, over the last decade, really since the Accountability Act in Alabama really kind of hit in 2013, we've seen schools take advantage of that, and it's the free market, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's really what we're in. I mean, it's the free market education process, and schools are able to provide services, and it allows more people to take advantage of the marketplace. And we've seen schools that's improved diversity. It's been able to improve their their student outreach and their purposes and their missions, and allow them to be creative. So I think we'll see that as this bill progresses in the legislature, which should get a vote in the House today, this afternoon. And, it'll just allow more people to take advantage of that marketplace. It'll be significant, but we've had a significant percentage of increase in membership over the last decade. I ran these numbers recently, and I think at the time around 2013, I want to say we had 56 members. And as of today, we're at 82 members and just over 26,000 students. So, a significant increase that a lot of it was driven by school choice opportunities and allowing schools to step into the marketplace. It takes money to run a school, and being able to have that foundation to start off. And like Valiant Cross in Montgomery is a good example of that. I think without school choice, it would have been extremely difficult for them to get started. And they started with 30 students, 6-7 years ago, and now they're what they're able to create and do is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I will say today is February 27th when we're recording this, and it'll air at a later date. So some of this legislation we're talking about may have already hopefully move forward. Yeah.
We'll predict the future. It's passed. Congratulations.
I guess for some people who are not as familiar, what does it actually mean? Like when you talk about school choice, are we talking about vouchers or just the ability for people to go wherever they want to and the money follows them, or how does this work?
Well, vouchers is a bad word.
Okay, sorry.
So this is an education savings account. So essentially it creates a new fund. It's pretty complicated. We won't get into the weeds on the legislation, but there'll be a new fund that's created where it's not the diverting of public funds that you'll hear the opposition will talk about. It really creates a new fund driven by tax credits from the individuals where the money goes into those accounts, and allows essentially those parents to have access to right now it's about $7,000 in the bill that they would have access to use toward eligible expenses, and of course tuition would be one of those expenses, textbooks and various other eligible expenses. So it really just allows those tax credits to set up, creates a individual education savings account that the parent does not just have access to spend, at their will. It'll be operated under the Department of Revenue, and there's typically a third party company that's actually involved that is the one that distributes the actual funds to ensure that it's done in an appropriate manner. So, school choice in general, we already have school choice. So that's really kind of broad. That encompasses private schools. That's school choice. We've had school choice since the early days of the country, or whenever public schools were created. I think private schools were probably, the standard very early on. But, we've had school choice for quite a while. But you also have charter schools. There's been some advancements in charter school legislation in the state. You have homeschool is considered school choice. We've seen a significant growth in Alabama for homeschool. So all that's school choice. It is what it says is choice.
I didn't write this down in my notes, but when I was going through the AISA website, which is AISAonline.org, last night I was looking at the accreditation piece too, because that's a big piece of one of the services you guys provide for your member organizations is helping them to get accredited through Cognia, I believe is the name of that organization. And so that's a big piece is all the AISA schools are accredited. Which is not always the case in some places. Right. And I don't think even to be, because again, they're independent, they're not forced to do this, but it's a recommendation, and y'all have done the things to help them do that. Y'all have a lot of different things too. I noticed a lot of events coming up too that were very focused, like with Scholars Bowl. There's an arts competition. Y'all are big into the SGA and helping them do different things throughout the year. There's a tech competition, which I believe this is the thing that I've helped judge in the past. That's coming up here in April at Vaughn Forest Church here in Montgomery, and you got a choral festival too. So these are a lot of different things that happen through the AISA that are just events. These are a lot. Yes. Do you go to all of them, Michael?
No. The Scholars Bowl is actually going on right now as we're recording this. So the High School Scholars Bowl competition is going on as we speak on February 27th. So, no, fortunately I have a staff. I used to. I mean, I used to run them. So, and then I do, and if I can, I try to. But having a wonderful staff that I know, I'm here right now recording this, knowing that Scholars Bowl is completely taken care of. Yeah. And but it allows me to be more flexible and do some other things as I walked into this building for us to record this podcast. I got a phone call I had to get. And that phone call will result in me having to go somewhere after this. Okay.
So you're like, hurry this up, Brian.
No. I'm good. But it's just, that the staff is so important. But I mean, it's important to our members. Those programs are, it's probably a little bit unique from other independent school associations out there that we provide so many student programming. So a lot of groups only focus on schools and not students. And but that's so much fun to see those kids, and you've judged, and that I think we call it computer science.
Yeah. We've actually taken a lot of people from our staff over there and have done this event. It's a really great opportunity for us to, one, to get out of the office, and then two, do we get to go partner with you guys to meet a lot of young talent and be able to encourage them. And there's been some really good stuff we've seen in these competitions, and I'm like, I need to keep my eye out on this guy, because if they go to college and come out of here, I want to hire this person to be working on my websites.
So much talent. I mean, thinking of some of those, and I don't know if you remember or not. I remember there was a kid that did a design. He did a fictional design of a baseball stadium for the city of New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
And, and created what it would look like. And it was unbelievable. From the design standpoint, it kind of had this, Mardi Gras kind of Bourbon Street kind of theme to the outlay of the
legit,
it was
basically.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
And, just some incredible things. These kids, they blow me away. Like the Scholars Bowl that's going on right now. I mean, I just sit there amazed by what some of these kids know and can do. And
when you mentioned
it's incredible.
Your staff too that you've got over there right now, we've had the opportunity to work with Sarah a lot, who's your operations director. So she is the glue that's holding everything together while everyone else is out doing everything. And she's been great to work with. And you've also got Maribeth Minshew. What does she do?
So Maribeth is actually our activities coordinator. So she specializes in those student.
Okay, so she's over there at the Scholars Bowl running that thing right now.
She's running it.
Okay.
So that was a position where we separated. Caleb Smith is the other employee that he's director of member services now, and that used to be, that job used to do student activities, accreditation, and professional development.
Yeah.
And that's just, with 82 schools, and it just became too much for that job. So we split that off.
And what is Caleb? He's out meeting with the schools?
No, Caleb's actually with Maribeth, helping her run that event, and Sarah's there as well. So Sarah probably got it going, and she may have left after registration, and Maribeth and Caleb stayed behind to make sure that it goes well, and they'll be the ones that post it on our Facebook page later today.
Yeah, I knew one of the things I told you in our pre-meeting is, this is one of those things that people get confused with, the AISA as an athletics organization also too. It is one of the things you guys do, but it's not the emphasis by any means. And I would say on your 82 schools, not even, I don't know what percentage does even participate in athletics through the AISA.
It's about half.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very small piece of what you do, but you do have a great guy running this entire thing, Roddy Beck over there. So he is the guy when it comes to athletics. But y'all have, I think I counted 18 programs. I think, if I remember,
sounds right.
I don't have it written down, but there's a lot of athletics. It's beyond just football. It's basically all the different sports that you guys are organizing in 3 different divisions: the A, AA, and AAA, between all those 40-something schools that are part of the Alabama Independent School Association. That's a pretty big undertaking. Just for that. But it's, again, that's just one person out of the 5 people that y'all have full time on your staff. That would represent like 20% of what you guys do, basically.
Yep.
The other 80% of it's 100% devoted towards education and growing the schools, the different things like the Scholars Bowl that's happening today. So.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to mention that it is a piece of what y'all guys, what you do, but I guess
it's important. It's an important piece.
Oh yeah,
it falls in there.
It was a big publicity piece for a lot of schools, and it can be a fundraiser, it can be an attraction, but in the end, the education piece is the bigger piece of what the Alabama Independent School Association offers. I guess there's always been some confusion in that between the other sports divisions here in Alabama and how they work, because they're strictly sports. Right. They have nothing to do with education. They're just organizing sports, whereas you guys do it as a piece of what it does. It's a byproduct, or it's still a big piece.
Service.
It's a service. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we as we started off with, we're there to provide the services that independent schools need in the state, and it's one of the services. Okay. So and at its core, I mean, that's the origin. I mean, athletics was the origin of the association. It was initially called the Alabama Private School Athletic Association.
Okay. I did not know that.
And then evolved into the Alabama Private School Association, and then was renamed the Alabama Independent School Association in I think it was the late 90s is when the name evolved.
When did the shift towards academics, when did that happen with AISA?
So, you mentioned that start date. I think we were actually incorporated in 1971.
Okay.
So that's when that started, and things like accreditation. Accreditation was probably the first piece that was added that was non-athletic, and then the student activities kind of fell in line with that, and then professional development for teachers kind of fell in there with accreditation, and you just end up adding those services. The advocacy piece probably, on some level, I'm sure it did, but it really didn't become a significant emphasis until the last decade or so. Is really when we started. And honestly, that's, when the Accountability Act passed in 2013, that's what drove that, because we had no idea it existed. We learned about it on the news, and that's kind of when we said we better start paying attention to this legislative stuff.
The professional development day you mentioned just now too. I've been able to go to a couple of those for you guys, and y'all have had some really big name speakers come in for this. I was trying to think the guy that was Jerry. He's a comedian.
Yeah, Jerry
teaching.
Brooks.
I mean, that was I loved hearing him speak.
Yeah,
my wife has gotten me to listen to him. And he reminds me of my father-in-law a lot. Truthfully, he's just got this down home like, say it the way it actually needs to be said kind of thing going on. And you often, I mean, not just him as a comedian, but like as like other educators. He's an educator too himself.
He's in Kentucky. Yeah. He's actually a Troy University alum.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was inducted in Troy Hall of Fame this past year. So.
Okay.
Big Troy guy.
Yes, but that's a big deal. If y'all have all these schools are coming into one place and doing professional development, which is almost unheard of, I would say, to have something like what y'all do for that. Then y'all have a big leadership conference that's coming up here in June, I believe.
Yep.
Who all comes in for that?
Oh, wow. It's kind of we try to focus on fellow administrators, but we bring people in from. We try to let people hear from folks that they normally don't hear from. So we'll bring people in. There'll be people from Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee. I think we have a speaker from, I know, Georgia, and then from South Carolina, North Carolina. Just different administrators with different expertise. And sometimes it may be on a specific, if we have a school safety part of that. We had the director of safety from UMS Wright, was there last year. So it just depends, but
and you'll make them suffer. Make them suffer down on the beach in June.
Yeah, it's terrible at Orange Beach, and
it's so hard to get people to come down there, Michael. I'm so
that's people ask me about that. I say, we did it in Montgomery for years, and attendance kind of dwindled a little bit, and we moved it to the beach, and really didn't change anything about the program, and attendance went up. So.
It's amazing what a good venue, but also that's also listening to your people too, though.
So put it at the beach. But we have had we've had some great. We've had Todd Whitaker, we've had Dave Burgess, Teach Like a Pirate.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
and we've had some phenomenal. We've had it's probably one of the most emotional ones we had, and her name is escaping me, but she was one of the Sandy Hook elementary teachers. I
remember that one.
Yeah, that one was tough. Yeah. But we've had some. I think if we can make them laugh, cry, and learn something in the process, it's been a good day. But that's a special program. But we have so many programs in between, literacy symposiums, and you name it. And that's what Caleb puts a lot of those together now.
So Mike, we're about the same age. We've got at least 20 more years in us, I feel like. I hope.
Yeah.
I'm talking about for the work. I hope to go further than 20 years. I want to go at least another 40. So, but if I could do 20 years of working, that'd be great. So just thinking about that, looking 20 years ahead from now, when it's coming that time where you're thinking about retiring or something, how's education looking at that point? What's your predictions of the future?
I think our idea of the traditional school has to shift. I think we have to kind of evolve from that, and we have seen that evolution with technology's driven a lot of that over the years. But we have so much, for micro schools that are kind of hybrid model schools that are really taking off in the country. There's a reason why homeschool's growing so much, and what are the reasons behind that? And is there a way that education needs to look to that and capitalize on it? I think we're going to see. I told, it was a couple of years ago. I gave a presentation, and you guys helped me. Dogwood helped me with this presentation. I gave a presentation, and we talked about this crazy new thing, artificial intelligence. You remember that?
I do.
And it was the next year is when AI went crazy with Chat GPT and what?
Yeah.
And we were, but that's where we are. And I think we're going to see artificial intelligence play a bigger role in education. I'm not going to be, I don't know if it's 20 years, but I'm not going to be shocked when the day comes when we're going to have kids sitting at home with Oculus type headsets and they're in a virtual classroom and the teacher may be,
It doesn't matter
AI.
where she's at.
It doesn't matter where she's at, and it may be partially AI driven, and students can interact with other. I mean, the possibilities are endless, and I'm always. My mom grew up in a small town in Alabama, and up through 8th grade, she attended a one-room schoolhouse, and all of those kids, all of her siblings, and all of those, they went on to do amazing things and were incredibly bright. And I think there's something to be said for that smaller environment. Where just a few years ago, this one-room that would have really been looked down on.
Yeah.
As not a viable option. It was watered down, and I think there's something to be said for that. So, we may see smaller environments. I think artificial intelligence. I think, obviously technology in general is going to drive some creativity there. I think 20 years is probably very likely we're going to see some of those big changes.
This is kind of away from AISA, more personal, Michael opinion, education realm. AI is causing teachers to have to even think about the way they're teaching now too.
Yeah.
In papers, for instance,
Yeah.
or students are submitting things that are done by AI. Then, like my son came in this past week and goes, my paper got turned back to me because I had too much stuff in it that was not changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, she ran it through an AI checker, and it came back that it was over 20%. And I was like, well, where'd you get the stuff from? And he's like, well, I copied it from here. And I was like, well, it probably should have been higher than 20%, JC. I said, the fact that it detected it is really cool, though, that it's going to force you to where, you can use AI as a starting point, but JC, they've also using AI to check behind you.
Yeah.
And so you've got to go back behind that and go, look, okay, the AI gave me some ideas, but now it's time to change it. And so, like, that's a piece of like what's going to be changing in the next 20 years, and just that's happened just in the past 2 years.
It's been 2 years, and I think we have to find. We're real bad in education about when things like this pop up that we're going to fight them. We're going to. So we have to do the things like JC's teacher did, but we got to find a way to embrace it too and use it, because we're ultimately preparing these kids for the future, right? We're preparing them for whatever their professional life's going to look like down the road, and that's going to be part of their life. And we schools fought the cell phone battle for years, and many have embraced it in some way now, or it's not what it used to be. There was a time where you couldn't even bring a cell phone to school.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And now that would be absurd.
I used to take mine apart. I had to take the battery off of it and the antenna, and I could carry it. I could carry one piece of it in the school, but all the rest of it had to get left in my car. And so I would bring the body of it so that in case someone broke my car, all they could take was my battery.
You must be younger than me. We didn't have those newfangled.
I had a really bad phone back in the day. It came in parts.
So the Alltel bag phone you're carrying around?
They had a flip phone, and it was Alltel.
Okay.
Well, Cellular One, is what I was originally with. Then went to Alltel. So I'm throwing out all these old names from the 90s.
Yeah,
so.
I had that first Alltel bag phone, and you could only use it at night when it was free.
Oh, after 7 p.m. it's free.
Yeah. And but we have to embrace some of those things and teach kids how to use them, and with that's going to come cybersecurity.
Yep.
We have to. My son's going to a cybersecurity camp this summer at the Space and Rocket Center, and
that's really cool.
It's just going to be part of our world. So you need to kind of embrace it, and you need to, it's an awesome tool.
Yeah.
We need to be able to teach kids how to use it. In the proper way. And
is this going to be part of y'all's subject matters at some of the conferences y'all are working?
Sure. Oh, yeah. It's I know it's one at the leadership conference, but it'll be ongoing. I remember it felt like for a decade we did 21st century professional development. At the turn of the century, and I felt like we drug that on a little too long. But
now every year it's going to be what's new this year.
It is, because things move so fast. That, like I mentioned, it was 2 years ago I gave that presentation, and people looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about artificial intelligence, but it was like that next year is when all that kind of hit, and everybody's like, whoa, wow.
Yep. You saw it coming.
I mean, it's and I didn't, I was kind of at that time we were doing, if you remember, I was kind of doing, this crazy futuristic stuff we're going to have to be dealing with.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, it was the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And you were like, and then a year later,
like, boom.
Yep, there it is.
And we missed that, if 20 years ago, people might have thought, or not 20 years ago, but maybe 40, 50 years ago, we'd have flying cars and we'd all have hoverboards and, but, so we missed some of those things, but there's, things that pop up in education that we, just like, wow, man, that evolved fast. And even if you think about, our cell phone, the devices we carry around in our pockets, that's not that old.
No. And it's one of those things I tell my kids all the time. They'll ask me questions, and they'll be, I don't know the answer to that, but you have the ability to find that answer right now, which is so cool because back in the day, I would ask a question like that, and we'd just have to wonder until we could get home to look it up on the encyclopedia or call the line at Auburn.
That's right. Yeah. Foy, call Foy.
Yeah.
But 20, I've been this 24 years. So in 2000, in 2000, the conversations we were having in school were about trying to get internet in the school. Mm-hmm. The school didn't have internet, so we were trying to get one school and the computer had to have internet. And that was a big deal. And then we were trying to with search blockers, and we were focusing on that, a little bit later. And people didn't really have cell phones at that time yet.
Yeah.
A little bit it was starting to click in. Pagers were still a big deal. Kids couldn't have pagers, and when you say 24 years ago, it sounds like a lot, but when you say it was year 2000, it's like, well, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, our kids are 15, and the iPhone came out right after they were born.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And, that device has, similar computer power, more than what put people on the moon.
And they carry it around in their pocket.
And they carry it around. We all do.
And use it to take crazy videos and pictures and Snapchats and stuff.
And, the things, too, that we did were with, with phones and everything is we fought that for so long, the ability to have that access to information. And I think we were a little slow embracing that. And, I sat in a meeting at some point during that time. It was with adults, and I was looking around the room. It's like every person in here has their phone in their hand, and they're, they're doing something. And then, we don't, we almost kind of need to teach kids to be able to do both.
Do it properly and use it at the right time.
Right.
That's a big thing, too. I still tell people that all the time, like walking into a meeting, you turn your phone upside down. It's just a basic thing. But people, they'll look at them the entire time. Yeah. And, that's just little basic, like, just things with your phone that need to be taught at this point. So,
it's pretty incredible.
Well, I know I've kept you here for a lot longer than I planned on, and even with you knowing you had like a rush to get out and everything. So, but it's been a great.
We had to split it up and do a part 1 and part 2 in your editing process.
Yeah, we had a good discussion here. So we went through a lot of different things. So we got the whole education part of the future, and then what you guys do at AISA. So hopefully our listeners that tuned in today will have learned a lot about the Alabama Independent School Association. In fact, if you go to AISAonline.org and you want to see what schools are part of the association, because maybe you want to move one of your students there or just want to check it out and learn more about it. They've actually got a map there on the website that has a listing of all the different schools there. There's a lot of different things in about the programs. If you go to the contact section, there's ways to contact all the staff also too from the AISA if you have any questions for them also too. If you like what you're hearing here, you can head over to our website at dogwoodmediasolutions.com. Check out any of our content there that we've written, and also listen to other podcast episodes you might have missed. And in fact, if you want to subscribe, that'd be a great place to do it also too there at dogwoodmediasolutions.com. You can also find us at all of your favorite podcasting platforms. There's like 25 or 30 different platforms where we've got this podcast going out to you right now. And if you're looking to connect with us, the website's still the same place to go. the best place to go, dogwoodmediasolutions.com. You can contact us directly through the site and through all of our social media accounts that are linked there as well. On our next podcast, Lauren will be sitting down with Beth Gillum, one from our staff, to talk about customer frustration and its impact on your business. I've got a preview of that blog, the post that Beth has actually written about customer frustration, and there's some really good points that they're going to be going through and the ways they affect your website. And that's really the avenue they're going to be looking at on that one, and making sure that your website is helpful and not distracting or frustrating to your clients, and making sure they can get to the right things. So this is one definitely want to check out. So that'll be in about 2 weeks from now. Thanks for tuning into the Dogwood Podcast. Thank you again to our guest, Michael McLendon.
Thank you.
All right. And until next time, happy marketing.